Welcome back, y'all. In today's episode, I am calling it the who, what, how in delegation, because as a business owner, the idea of delegating sounds amazing. I don't have to do this thing anymore. I can get it done just by telling someone else to do it. Wow, that sounds like heaven, because I have so much to do and I can just have other people do so many things. Well, the problem is, as business owners, most of us suck at the skill of delegation. And it is exactly that, in my opinion, a skill. We don't think about whether or not the person that we're delegating to is the right fit under the context. We don't think about how to properly delegate. And what most of us actually do is we say, hey, I need to get this done, do it. Well, I have 4 lessons that I've learned around delegation. Those 4 lessons are: 1, be conscious of who you're delegating to. And for example, have they done what you need delegated before? 2, be conscious of what you're delegating. Is it a task that, if it doesn't get done, will directly impact revenue and profit? 3, how to properly delegate, and we'll talk about that. And 4, getting feedback on your delegation. So having some sort of regular reporting system to validate whether or not you are delegating appropriately. So I'm going to go through each one of those with you so that by the end of this episode, you'll know exactly how and what to delegate and to whom. But first, who am I? My name is Ryan Rice. I am a full-time real estate investor. In my previous world, I led large teams in the Fortune 30 world, the largest of which did $4 billion in revenue per year. And now I lead a much smaller team, which is a business that I own. Last year, we did $1.2 million in revenue. I share all of this in the event that it's helpful for you. So I'm going to interweave these lessons that I've learned with a story. In my business recently, I realized that I had a delegation problem. I delegated a specific task, and I delegated it very terribly. And so I want to tell that story and explain these lessons that I've learned in the context of that story. When I brought on my follow-up specialist on my team, which is now about 1.5 to 2 years ago, one thing that felt like this heavy refrigerator off my back was just this constant follow-up with leads in my CRM system. Now that I had him on my team, I had someone who could do that for me. And I remember it weighing on me for 2 reasons. One, because I didn't really have a good system implemented. And so me trying to figure out how I was following up with all the leads in my system was kind of painful. But 2, it just wasn't something that I found a lot of enjoyment in. And so I was like, okay, great. I don't need to figure this out anymore. And I don't really enjoy spending my time doing it. So now I have someone, and now that person can do it. And my life is going to be so much better. And so when I brought him on and I got him trained, I essentially said, hey, you're in charge of following up with leads now. Here you go. And that's basically what I told him, more or less. And how shocking is it to learn that over the past few months, I uncovered some gaps in our follow-up. And then I realized, well, duh. Like, I basically said, hey, you're going to do this thing now. I didn't tell him how to do it. I didn't build a good system. And I just basically said, hey, you're going to do it. And by the way, when I brought him on, he didn't have a ton of sales or follow-up or CRM type of experience. And so it would be a skill that I would need to train in order for me to be confident that that's something that he could do efficiently. And so that's a good segue into lesson 1. You have to be conscious of who you're delegating to. And what I mean by that is, has the person done the task or the thing or the project that you need delegated? Have they done that before? And if the answer is no, well, you're going to have to be very strategic about how you delegate said task, said project. Because if they don't know how to do it and you just say, hey, do this, it's not very mind-numbing to realize that there might be some gaps in the future. And if there are gaps, then it's on you as the person who delegated it, and it's not on the person who you delegated it to. And so it sounds like this big duh, but as entrepreneurs, we do it all the time. We have a body and we're like, okay, thank God I have this person that can do this thing that I don't like. Here, you do this now. And that's basically what we do. And we expect it to be done in some sort of level that is going to be amazing. Well, you have to make sure that the person you're delegating the task to is either already skilled, or if not, then you have to train them or get them proficient in that skill before expecting the outcome to be any sort of measurable outcome. So as you can imagine with this CRM issue over the past few months, I noticed that there were a lot of leads that weren't being followed up on. And again, it's because we didn't have this system. Well, in a business, is it a big or a small problem if your leads aren't being followed up with appropriately in your CRM? Well, that is a big problem, and that is a problem that is going to impact your revenue and, as a result, directly impact your profit. And so that's a good segue into lesson 2. You have to be conscious of what you're delegating. Is what you're delegating a task that if it doesn't get done correctly, is it going to impact revenue and profit? And if so, then you need to be very directly involved. You need to ensure that the person you're delegating to has a very clear understanding of what's expected. And maybe it's not even something that needs to be delegated or should be delegated in the first place. And so in this case, I was so excited to not have to follow up with my leads anymore that I said, hey, do this task for me. And sales and revenue took a hit as a result because we didn't have this great follow-up system in place. And again, it sounds like a duh, but as entrepreneurs, we continue to do this over and over and over. We delegate things that are going to directly impact our profit, directly impact our sales, and we give them to people who may not be as proficient in the skill, yet we still expect it to be done. And we still expect there to be no hit to sales and revenue. And so when we're delegating, we have to ask ourselves these questions, right? Is the person that I'm delegating to already trained in this skill? Have they proven that they can do this before? And 2, is what I'm asking to be delegated a direct impact to sales and revenue? And if so, it needs to be very deliberate, slow, very heavily oversighted delegation. It can't be something that you're just like, hey, do this for me. And the relief of saying, hey, do this for me is so great, and therefore you don't dig into it anymore. That's going to be a problem for your business. And so when I realized this was a problem, I said, okay, well, I'm an idiot, first off. Second off, I need to come up with a system that is going to make this easy for him so that I can train him how to do this system. And so I had to go figure out how to get a proper CRM follow-up system in place. In other words, what were going to be the mechanisms we were going to use to follow up with which leads to ensure that he is spending his time talking to the most qualified people first, and then, goes on down the line and spends the least amount of time talking with the people who are the least qualified. And that's not how our system was set up. And so then I went and figured out what a good system would look like. And I took a partner in the industry who kind of said, hey, do this, do this, do this. And it was very helpful. And then because I learned it, I was able then to demonstrate what this system would look like to him. And then he's able to take it and execute it. And so that is the third delegation lesson here, how to properly delegate. The how not to delegate, and sometimes all we need to do something successful is think about how not to do something and do the reverse. Exactly what I told you, right? Have a problem in your business, get excited because you don't have to do it anymore, and just say, hey, do this. That is a good example of how not to delegate. And again, it sounds very obvious, but that is what we all do. How to properly delegate involves 3 steps. 1, you show them how to do it. 2, the person documents what it is that you're doing when they're watching you do the thing. And then 3, after it's been documented, the person then does the thing based on their documentation, and then you observe them and give them feedback. I got this framework from Alex and Layla Hormozi. They call it, what do they call it? Demonstrate, document, duplicate. And I have found that is personally very effective because I've used it several times in my business now. But the way that you properly delegate something is you show the person or demonstrate the person how to do it, have them document what it is that you're doing. So they pull out your key behaviors, and then they follow their documentation, and then you watch them do it and give them feedback. And what do you know? When I did this with my CRM, our results drastically improve. I think one thing that good follow-up in a CRM system is going to generate is going to be seller appointments. And once we developed this new system, we generated like 5 or 6 seller appointments from older leads that were just sitting in our system. And just last week, we actually got a contract. And so there's a very clear correlation into following up in a CRM and its ability to produce revenue. And how groundbreaking is it that if you show someone how to do something, they document what it is that you do, and then they do it, and you watch them and give them feedback, they're going to be able to do it better than if you just say, hey, do this thing for me. And then the last and fourth lesson in delegation is get feedback on what it is that you delegated in some sort of reporting system. And so, for example, now what we do in regards to this follow-up system in my CRM is my follow-up specialist has these key things that he reports on at the end of each day that indicate whether or not he is following this system that we have established. And it's an easy way for me to get live daily feedback on whether or not that system has been followed. And during our daily huddles, now it's a topic that we're constantly looking at because it's fresh and it's something that we want to make sure is implemented consistently. And so what not to do is exactly what I did, say, hey, do this thing for me, and then just have no sort of follow-up in place until your deal flow feels low and you go realize that there's a ton of leads that you haven't talked to in a very long time because there's a poor follow-up system in place. And again, all of this sounds, I think I've said it 4 times now, all of this sounds so obvious, but this is literally what we do when it comes to delegation as entrepreneurs. Because honestly, I feel like one of the big reasons why we delegate is because we're so stressed and we need this sense of relief and, okay, oh my gosh, now that I have this person, they can do this thing. And so we just give it to them. And it's not surprising that that's not a very effective way to get the outcome that we want. And honestly, too, I think above and beyond the actual outcome not being achieved, how disempowering is it for the person that you delegated it to? Because most people want to do a good job. And if you delegate something to them that then they don't really know how to do, and they feel like they're trying, but they haven't done it before, and they haven't learned the skills that are necessary, which means that they're not going to do it very well, that's just not going to be very empowering. And so if you want to be a good leader, then you have a responsibility to make sure that you delegate appropriately. So it's not just for the outcomes that you're after in your company, but if you want to build a team that people want to be a part of, then you're going to have to learn how to delegate appropriately. And so culture is incredibly important in a company, even when your team is small. And as your team grows, the outcomes in your business will be driven by your culture. And so you might as well start early when your business is small and doing things the right way and making sure that the people on your team, they feel like they know what is expected of them. They know how to do what it is that you expect them to do. And then you have a way to validate and confirm whether or not that what you expect them to do is clearly understood. So to recap, step 1, be conscious of who you're delegating to. Is the person trained, or have they shown that they can do what it is that you're delegating them? 2, be conscious of what you're delegating. Is it going to directly impact sales and revenue? If so, it would be in your team's and your team members' best interest for you to be very involved. 3, how to properly delegate. Show them how to do it. Have the person document what it is that you're doing as you show them. The person does it while you observe them. And then the 4th lesson is get feedback on what it is that you're delegating by some sort of regular reporting system. So I hope that was helpful. If you know an entrepreneur out there who may need to hear this delegation message, shoot it over to them, send this to them. I think it's important that we create a world where we have more effective entrepreneurs as opposed to entrepreneurs spinning our wheels. And if we don't delegate the right way, then we're going to have a lot of entrepreneurs out there that are spinning their wheels. So please share this. That's a way too that you can help this channel. That's the only way that we grow. But I hope you guys got some value out of that. I know me crystallizing how I make sure I'm delegating in the future is only going to help me in my business. So I appreciate y'all, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.